Hey, thank you to all the other fellow YouTubers who've helped me out through the years figuring out my car. Here's a little something I hope helps you. I'm going to change out the Vtec solenoid on a Honda Accord. This is a 1999 with 300,000 miles on it. For me, it was really a matter of just getting the right wrenches, and I'll show you how I tackled it, and hopefully this will help you. And this is also for those people out there who think I don't know anything about cars. So there you go.
Okay, my issue started when I got a dash light and a trouble code 1259, which is the Vtec system. And the first thing they say you want to suspect is a clogged filter in the Vtec solenoid, and you'll find plenty of other videos out there that'll discuss the problem. I'll just show you how I tackled mine. Vtec solenoid sits right at the back of the valve cover. You can see this is the solenoid there, and that has the magnet that actuates the valve, and then the valve rests just below that. It's bolted with 3 bolts, which are really difficult to get to. They're in the top 2 corners, and then the third one down on the bottom on the outside. It's a really tight space because you're up against the thermostat housing. Again, this is a 99 Accord EX. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the air snorkel here and remove the Egr valve here, which has 2 hold-down bolts on either side, and we'll go at it from there. Okie dokie, step 1 was to remove the air snorkel. So you can see we cleared out this pathway here where the air snorkel would be, and there's your air box for the air filter. Now we're going to get the Egr valve off. First you want to disconnect the wiring harness that goes to it here, and then there are 2 bolts on either side. There's one there and one there. You take those nuts off. Those are 12 millimeter, and just lift off the Egr valve. By the way, if you're ever having issues passing emissions tests, this is a good passageway to clean out. I had started getting borderline scores, and when I cleaned out this passageway that goes back into the intake plenum, you have to remove this whole housing back here, which is where the throttle body is. If you remove this back here and clean out all the carbon that's built up in there, you might have a like-new emissions test. And then you have the inside of the Egr valve. Those ports want to get cleaned out. Okay, the next thing I want to do is free up the Vtec solenoid itself a little bit. To give yourself a little more wiggle room, you can loosen up this harness rail here. There's just a little clip here that you can loosen and pull this up out of the way, just to give you a little more freedom to work in here. There are 2 wiring harnesses on the Egr solenoid. There's one right here on top that's fairly easy to see and get at. So I've been able to verify that the plunger mechanism is working on my Vtec solenoid. I put a T-pin in here to back probe the electrical connector. Now I'm going to run a jumper cable straight off of the positive on the battery. We're just going to close the circuit, and we'll hear the actuator engage. If we did that with the engine running, we should hear the engine speed change. Mine does not, so I'm hoping it's because I have which is why the trouble code 1259 was thrown, and I'm hoping it's just because the filter is clogged on the Vtec assembly down below. The plunger is doing its job, but the oil is not able to get through the passageway to engage the camshaft properly. And also the other reason to do this is because I'm showing some signs of leakage around the gasket right here where the Vtec solenoid mates with the engine block. So the next step is we're just going to go at the 3 bolts that hold down the top of the solenoid, and first we want to disconnect the 2 wiring harnesses. They're here on top where we back probed, and then there's one down on the bottom on the side here, facing sideways.
So we'll disconnect those two and these 3 bolts on top. Now as you remove these 3 bolts on the top of the Vtec solenoid, just be really careful. You don't want to round over those heads, especially when they've been on there a long time. They're difficult to get at, so just make sure you're solidly on top of them and work slowly. When you have those out and you've disconnected your wiring harness, you can just lift it off. You can lift it off, and this O-ring inside is not serviceable anymore by Honda, this is a source of a leak too. And then on the inside, you can see this is the plunger. This should have a little bit of recess. You should be able to push it down. And that's what actuates the Vtec system and diverts oil to a different passageway down below it. So now we're going to get at the rest of the solenoid itself, which is down below here on the side of the engine block. So there are the 3 screws holding it on. There's one here, one below it, and then one on the inside. So we're going to go at those, and hopefully one of our new wrenches will work. Oh my god, success. I am so happy. Now, this is the valve once it's off, and it lives like this. Remember we were looking at it from the top a moment ago, and it lives right here on the side of the engine block. Take those 3 bolts out, it pulls out, and you can see back inside. This is the filter, or the gasket and filter that we're going to replace. So it will just pull out, and we have a new one to put in there. Hopefully this filter is clogged, and that's what's keeping the Egr system from functioning properly. If not, we will just at least replace, we'll be fixing the leak, and we just won't have a Vtec system. Okay, I want to show you what I used to get at this, because there was no other way I was going to get it off. Again, this is how your Vtec solenoid sits on the car, and you can see the 3 bolts that are very tricky to get at. And I had to go out, I got a 1/4-inch drive with a very low profile socket that was able to get the top 2, but then the bottom one was a little too tight for this to get on, so I was able to get an offset 10mm wrench, which got at the bottom one. So we're going to replace the gasket and filter that come like this from the dealership. Unfortunately, the dealer will not sell you the O-ring on top anymore. They consider this all one unit with the actuator that sits on top, which is unfortunate because I think you used to be able to buy this gasket separately, but now they don't for $1.99. Unfortunately, my screen does look pretty clean, so I'm hoping that when I replace this, I'll get my Vtec back, but it's possible that I won't. But even if I don't, at least I will get rid of that oil leak in the back of my engine block.